Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for coming for this seminar to uncover the ancient Chinese wisdom for the modern day. I'm very happy to be here and to present this subject. You know, in today's world, everyone knows we have a problem in this world. If we want to describe the predicament of the modern day, we have one Chinese word, 紧张, which can be translated in English as a tension, confrontation, or shortage. On a personal level, that we have a lot of pressure, relational tension, and at home, during in the school or at your work. And for national, you have division and confrontation everywhere. And for environment, on a global level, we have environmental pollution, and we have the shortage of natural resources, which could be a root for so many wars that you can see. Now, what is the way out? Now, everyone is trying to figure out what is the way out. As mentioned just now, there are some wise men pointed the way. I look online and I found this one. It's on Washington Post. And even have the Prime Minister, Li Kuang, his picture is also there. This is telling us, as you can see, it's in Paris, January 18, 1988. 75 Nobel Prize winners actually was invited by another peacemaker, Peace Nobel Prize winner, so therefore make it 76 of them. They come together trying to figure out a way, how would this genius point the way for the coming 21st century. And as a result, one of the main points that they discuss, and they say, you know, we are not in power, but we hope those people are in power will listen to us. And one of the solutions, they say, it is that, let me see if I can, what is the pointer? But anyway, if mankind is to survive, it must go back 25 centuries in time to tap the wisdom of Confucius. Now, what is it that lie in the Confucius wisdom that could help the world to face the 21st century? Now, one word could solve it. This is the one word in Chinese. I want anyone know about this one. In the Chinese, it could mean harmony. It could mean peace. It could mean safety. And this is the thing, the word, the theme in the Chinese value that will bring everything in unity, in harmony. So this word 和 is quite important. Now, just give you a simple contrast. In America, they had a space shuttle. The first one is Columbia, and trying to discover and then conquer. Carries this connotation. The second one is called Challenger. I remember pretty well when I was still in college, which is in January 24, 1986. That Challenger exploded. The whole thing was lost. And then they changed the name for the next one that's coming up. The next one is called Discovery. Now you can see none of this showing a respect for the power that's behind and trying to build a relationship with that power. None of this. Now you can see, now I want to give you another contrast. This is done in China. China also have a space shuttle and everything. They call that 和平, peace. They want to find peace. Now, if the problem cannot be solved on this global level, let's go to a higher source to find a solution to bring peace to this one, to this world. So this space, they call that 和平空间站. It's named as peace. So this is one of the wisdom they got, even today in Russia, Ukraine, while the America and Europe sell the weapons, support, fight. Which country is to say, no, let's sit down and talk? China. They still bring the peace. You find it strange, this communist country, where do they got this kind of relational solutions is to behave more like civilized government than those who encourage fight, 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 fight. Oh, it's very ironic today. And even the express train, how many of you have expressed the Chinese express train? Very quick. Yeah, nice, isn't it? What is the name of it? Brand of it? 和谐号. 和, again, harmony. They emphasize harmony. And so this wisdom is, if you have this one, it's going to solve the problem. The sky or the nature will bring blessings. If we have harmony on this earth, then you have harvest. If we have this 和 among man, and then all industries, all careers will be doing well, and then at home it will be peace. Otherwise, you'll hear the tiger shouting and all kinds of things. Now, this is very important. Now, what is the bottom line to bring all this together? So the key, the Chinese emphasize, it is that if we all have oneness with heaven, then all this harmony and all this peace is going to come. So bottom line is you have to be one with heaven. So for this few days, we're going to talk about the wisdom for oneness with heaven. What is this ideal? How does that come to be? And then tomorrow we'll look at the ancient yet refreshing wisdom of health. Now today you have all kinds of medicine, and every year you will publish new notice, this medicine cannot be used anymore. Another year you'll say this kind of medicine need to get rid of. But there is another medicine, it always remains the same, no matter what disease comes. Still the same principle, the same formula. And so we'll look into that tomorrow. And the last day we will look at what is the way to bring a safe and peaceful, harmonious world to not only in this world, in the whole universe. Now, let's look at the first one. And what is the ideal for oneness with heaven? Of course, let's do some facts check. You know, with the Chinese, I hear this all the time. And of course, now India comes up. But before this, it's always saying Chinese is the most populous people in the whole world. One of the Singaporeans wrote this book. I don't know whether you are familiar with this one. I think he was born in Kuching, Malaysia. And then he came to Singapore, and the company invested, I look at it, it said they invested $5 million to record and shoot the activities of the Chinese everywhere. The title of the book is Where the Sun Shines, There Are Chinese. I live in Philippines for a few years now, and they come to teasing with me. They say, God created the heaven and the earth, the Chinese created everything else. So therefore, they say, the most often used, most frequently heard 3 words in the world, what is that? They say, made in China. That's just the reality. However, even with all of this, there's still a lot of misunderstandings. This misunderstanding not only existed among the foreigners to the Chinese, but it's even among Chinese ourselves. Whether you are English-speaking Chinese or Chinese-speaking Chinese, you may also have misunderstandings. I just noticed, this is a great one. For many Chinese, they still think Christianity is a foreign religion. But as you will see, that the root of the Chinese is basically Christianity. But we'll check out some of the evidences. But for Christians, they think Chinese culture is a cult. Whatever they hear about the Chinese thing, they think, oh, that must be bad. Even though it is so biblical, even much better. And we will show you tomorrow. You will see even the first chapter of Genesis in the Bible. If you look at the Chinese way, your mind will be blown away. And the Westerners never know how to read it that way. Never figured it out. But they think Chinese are pagans. The culture is like a cult. Anything associated with Chinese is questionable. Everything has to be, you carry some Western connotation, then it becomes, well. If you look at the symbols and icons, what is the most accepted? When you ask people, what is the Chinese culture? They did a poll. They said, the first one on the list, the highest, the Jackie Chan. It becomes the icon. And then you have the Great Wall and then Chinese restaurant. And I know they said, in America, that you go to a restaurant, even on the menu, there's only 12 or 10 or less dishes on the menu. The cooks couldn't figure it out. It's not so efficient. You go to a Chinese restaurant, before you warm the seat, the food is already there. And you look at that menu, almost 500 recipes. And the cooks are not even professional. Just somebody's uncle or auntie. That's a joke I heard, but it's quite true. Everyone knows how to cook some Chinese, and the rest of it. So we have a different way, and some of these things become, the pictures become the icons for the Chinese culture. So gradually, and we kind of like losing the Chinese taste. I found some cartoons just to show what it is, the differences between a mother talk in the Chinese and mother and daughter talk in America. The Chinese would say, the winter is coming, I bought you a sweat, please remember to wear it on, and so you don't get sick. They don't say, I love you. They don't say that, but they express it in action. They don't say that. In America, they say, oh, I love you. Mom, I love you. They hung off. That's it. What is the action? Sometimes I believe it's there, but the way to express it is a little different. And another cartoon showed, somebody holding a cat and say, don't eat my cat. They think Cantonese will eat everything with 4 legs except the tables or chairs, or anything flies except the plane. And they even come up with a new thinking. If Adam was a Chinese, the whole world will be different because he will eat the snake rather than being tempted. That's how the misunderstandings about the Chinese. For myself, I have my own journey. I was born in China, grew up in China. When I was young, we were taught how to be a good student of Mao Zedong, and everything is so communist. I can memorize a lot of Mao's quotations. In a school, that's how you were educated. But later on, when I start about 15 years old, I start to learn English. And those days, there's not much program. I learned it from the TV or radio. My world started to open. I see the world a little differently. I put myself, I want to learn as much as I can, and adopted a lot of new things. But later in my life, I have gone through many things. I've gone through Buddhism. I became a Hare Krishna. Anybody heard about Hare Krishna? It's a kind of a form of Hinduism. I built an ashram. I was an ashram president. All kinds of things, and trying to find answers for life. Later, when I look back and looking at the Chinese classics, Chinese writings, I said, man, whatever I learned from the Bible, nothing is new. Everything was there a long time ago. How could that be? Then how does it come that today's world, whenever you talk about the Chinese, seems like they only know Kong Xi Fa Cai and nothing else? That's about it. They don't even say Happy New Year. Just they say Gong Xi Fa Cai. So I have went back to dig out all these Chinese classics to see exactly what it means, what it taught, why the Chinese changed over time, and from when the change came. And that is some of the things I want to share with you, what I discovered. And you will be probably as surprised as I am. We have some objectives. We try to find the original root of Chinese culture. Obviously, this is a very ancient culture. But what is the root? And secondly, we want to make it super clear that to the Chinese, actually, the Bible religion is not foreign to the Chinese at all. And as we will unpack some of these, and you can see with your own eyes. And hopefully, we want to show that, hey, if that's the root and that is the treasury of the Chinese, the modern Chinese, we probably should go back to our own root. And finally, that we also want to call Christians, probably go back to the Bible and don't go with traditions. And you will see, there's so many Christian traditions. When you compare with Chinese classics, they will show these traditions are false. And then you find, that's not in the Bible. And why Chinese don't accept that? They call that Yang Jiao, foreign religion, because it's foreign. It's not biblical. So we will share some of that. So question, back to our theme. Now, if you want to be one with heaven, then what is the Chinese understanding of heaven? That becomes a very natural question. And then, how was oneness with heaven was achieved? How can this be achieved? According to the ancient Chinese wisdom. These are the two basic questions we're trying to explore for tonight. Now, this is a word, the bottom line means the earth. The upline means things above the earth, so it means above. And in the above there, and there is a big, important person. A big, huge, or important figure. Now, if you put these two together, then this is the Chinese word for heaven, Tian. So the big, important figure up there. And he is what we call Tian. And in a book, 春秋繁露, this is about the 2nd century. It was written in 2nd century. It gives a definition. There are so many, but I just choose one. This is the easy one. It said, heaven is the ancestor of all things. Nothing will be born without heaven. In other words, heaven is a creator. Very simple. Now, you have to compare this. Nowadays, people think creation, creator, and they take it for granted, unless you compare with the so-called science. And then you realize, that wisdom is actually pretty profound. Now, today, if you go to school and you learn biology or whatever, from high school, they teach you we come from monkeys, apes, and this kind of thing. Evolution is the popular theory. And if you want to send a paper to a journal in a scientific world, you got to be an evolutionist. Otherwise, you have a very slim chance to have your paper to be published. That is just a fact. It's just like that. Don't tell me that science is real science. It's so biased, prejudiced, regional, political, and even financial. That's what it is today. So this guy is pretty interesting guy, and he's a Nobel Prize winner in 1966 for physics. So he made a statement and kind of tell us what is science. He said, science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. And one of the reasons for him to say that is experts always change. They always make modifications. Now I want to just compare with you. One thing, if we want to compare inspiration or revelation, what is the difference between revelation and the science? The big difference is that science is always progressing, it's advancing. And revelation, once it's revealed, remains the same forever. It doesn't change. There's no need for change. There's no need for modification. It remains the same because it comes from the perfect source. Science is a human effort trying to discover what are the things out there. When we make a mistake, we invented a very beautiful phrase to describe it. We say that is called paradigm shift. Because what was done before was wrong. Now we enter a new paradigm. Now, a few years later, they say, going to shift to another one. This is a science. Never going to be perfect. So that is why he's saying, you got to be wise, especially for the things talking about the basic issues relating to life, to the origin of the world, to all of these things. You have a choice to make. Either choose inspiration or choose this one, science. If you compare with other cultures about their origins, they have a different theories. This I don't have to get into it, but these are different ways in India, in Africa, and in Greek, how they talk about how this world come into being. Very interesting, but it's a little different than what the Chinese see. So the Chinese see heaven is not, we use this word, tian, to describe the creator. So creator means tian. God is the word tian. Now the space he creates is also called tian because he is the only one can be the measurement for the creation he has done. Now how about a time? I know English. So when we describe today, 24 hours, we say that as a day. But who gave you this day? What can be the measurement for this day? The Chinese say only tian, God, can be the measurement for this day. You enjoy it today, and they say yi tian is heaven give you to this day. Tian tian. So each day you're reminded your life is given, is sustained by heaven. And even the measurement is heaven. No other measurement is more qualified to be used to measure time, except this is a part of God himself. So he's sharing his own existence. He's sharing his own life with us. So the Chinese call that tian. So we live tian. Now you think that's not a very good theology? I think so. It's a pretty good one. And this way of the Bible describe how God created man. It says God created man out of the dust of the world and then gave him the breath of life. Now the Chinese says similar. Of course, because it's a Chinese, so the language is very beautiful. It says, this is how man come to be, that the heaven gives the essence, in other words, the breath of life. But the earth provided the form. When the essence and the form combined, and then man was born, was created. Exactly the same, how God created human being. So because of this, then we say life is from heaven, 人命关天. If you kill someone, you don't say 人命关父母. Nobody say life is related to parents. Our body comes from parents, but our life comes from heaven. Even non-believers today says that. At the court, and people say that, 人命关天. So this belief, this strong belief in heaven, in that our life is sustained by heaven and hidden in heaven, is so popular in the Chinese world, even today. You go to the market, you can ask anyone, they will say the same thing. We just need to be reminded. Therefore, the blessing is that we have to be obedient to heaven. That leads to life, to prosperity, and disobedience to heaven leads to death. Basic principle. So therefore, Chinese culture is categorized by obedience. And I think Western culture is categorized by justice. They want to be fair, equal, just. And that's how that culture is. And maybe oversimplified, but there's some truth to it. So if you hurt, if you violate the law, and the Chinese say, 伤天害理. You hurt heaven. So in other words, heaven's feeling can be hurt. So we should obey his law, therefore we don't hurt him. So this is just right there in our language. And another one is heaven always have a way out for man. Heaven never destroys anyone. 天无绝人之路. In other words, God finds a way for us. So this is in the very common Chinese saying. And you can tell the Chinese, they will know. Because of this, we have a way to show, to describe how we are to relate to heaven. Now this, I tried to translate that into English, but I couldn't do enough. 敬天, 视天, 笑天, 罚天, 折天, 顺天, 尊天, 祭天, 奉天, 应天. It's basically those words. But every word carries with attitude. With attitude. It's not just an abstract principle. Now, even this one, and you watch TV, so 奉天承运皇帝诏曰, when the 皇帝and the emperor is given a decree, and he has said, this is done according to the mandate of heaven. And the emperor will call themselves the sons of heaven. Now, our mind is conditioned today. We look at this world system, we say, republic, of the people, by the people, and for the people. We think this is great. The Chinese way, oh, come on, that is not great. That is so human-centered, useless. What do they call that? It is called the kingdom of heaven. That's what they call it. 天下. It's not about man. It's of God, by God, for God's glory. That's the Chinese system about the countries, about the national principles. So whether you are Republican or Democratic or royal kingdom, nonsense compared with the kingdom of God concept. So therefore, the Chinese government always publish their document. Respect heaven first. And then they say, this is what I want to ask you to do. Which government in this world does that? Only the Chinese have done it for centuries, for thousands. But the world is trying to teach us to forget all about it. Chinese are pagan. But this is all there, still there. You watch the TV, still there. I'm not making it up. It's just right there. So how did the Chinese they come to know God, in such a devoted way? Where is the origin of the ancient Chinese wisdom? Where can you find it? When you're talking about the source, the origins, and I use this as let's start from the beginning, like the sound of music. Let's go back to the very beginning. When we come to the human civilization, talking about the beginning, what do? We say, there are 4 ancient civilizations, right? I always say that. And you have Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Hindu, India, and then China. And each culture, each of these is by the side of a river. You have Yellow River for China, you have Ganges River for India, and then you have which river? Nile River for the Egypt, and then they have Mesopotamia. Euphrates for Mesopotamia culture. Now, why is it that when you're talking about the beginning, you have to talk about the 4 rivers? And among all of this, the Chinese culture is the only one that survived. I quoted just the one that a missionary student, he once comment on China. He says Chinese history is remote, how to say that? Monotonous, obscure, and the worst of all, there's too much of it. How much do you have to study about American history? How much you have to study if you want to study the Chinese history? You can compare. There's a big difference. And the scholars, historians, they say, one historian is asked a Chinese Zhou Enlai and say, how did you see French Revolution? French Revolution is about 200 years, some years ago. And Zhou Enlai said, it is still too soon to evaluate. Wow, over 200 years, still too soon? Yes, because the Chinese thinking of in terms of history, they're thinking about 5,000 years. So 200 years is still pretty relatively short. But the Western world, the history concept is too short. Even 10 years to start to evaluate things. Come on, 10 years, how can it be accurate? Even 10 years to evaluate their own marriage, it's too soon, isn't it? So they are saying that the Chinese, the history, everything, it's just so remarkable. I'm not going to read all of this, but basically, it's just saying there's so much out there. Paper and gunpowder and the campus soak and tea and everything. So the Chinese is the long history, but why it started with 4 rivers? And that is a question that bugged my mind. And so I started to go back to the very beginning. In the Bible, it talks about the beginning of a human. God created Adam and then put him in the Garden of Eden. And then in the Garden of Eden, it says there is a river going through the Garden of Eden. Then it becomes 4 rivers. Why 4 rivers? Of course, it's designed, then human being will develop along the rivers. That is God's intention in the beginning. And this is in the Chinese memory. 4 rivers coming from another well from heaven, which is like Garden of Eden. Water comes from Garden of Eden. It's kind of like heavenly well, and then become 4 rivers. Now, on our hand, we have the Chinese look at the body. They look at this body a little different. They say you have, the 2 hands, legs representing 4 seasons, and you have 365 days. Therefore, on the body, you have 365 points. And you have 12 months, therefore you have 12 meridians, 12 channels. And one of them is talking about metabolism, water metabolism. It's called Sanjiao meridians. It's over here, it's starting from here. It goes all the way here and coming up. One point here is called the 4 river. And then the next point is called a heavenly well. It seems like they got this is a remote memory for the ancient Chinese culture. Now, even today, one province, Sichuan, is called 4 rivers. It's the beginning. And Sichuan is also called the kingdom of God, Tianfu. Same. So this brings us back to the original design. It starts from 4 rivers. And these 4 rivers come from the heavenly well. It's not only on the body recorded that, but also in the names. I know the only 2 cultures know this. Another culture is India. They think the Ganges River, where is the beginning of the Ganges River? It said it's from heaven. Well, they're trying to go back to the Bible. The 4 rivers is actually coming from the kingdom, the Eden, the Garden of Eden, the kingdom of God. So that's therefore rivers coming from heaven. That's natural. They still have this memory in their culture. Now, where does Chinese come from? This is the earliest words that you can find China in the ancient classics. Who's ever studied Chinese history? This is the earliest. What he says, since the great heaven entrusted the subjects and the territory of the Middle Kingdom, Zhongguo, which is the Middle Kingdom, to the first king, therefore, kings shall offer sacrifices to heaven. What is the job of the king? The priority is to offer sacrifices to heaven. For those who know the Bible, and you know that there's only one person can offer sacrifice once a year, which is the high priest. And the high priest is a priest as well as a king. This system is discontinued in the Jewish, but this system, as we will show you from the historical evidence, this system has been there for more than 4,000 years in the history of China until 1911, when the so-called Republic of China was founded. So the Chinese history is very long. We have a legendary history of about 1,500 years. Then we have 3,500 years documented, written history. And if you compare that with the Bible, it's quite interesting. The creation, according to the Bible, is 4,004 BC. And then you go through 1,656 years, you come to the time of flood. And then you go to another 101 years, you come to the Tower of Babel. People were scattered everywhere. Sometimes people look at the Chinese, they say, I have a strong proof that the Chinese people were not the Babel builders. The reason is very simple. If they were, they could have finished it. They're very efficient. And then right after that, 42 years later, you have the first Chinese dynasty. Now, not before that. So in a way, the Chinese chronology supports the biblical chronology. So this goes together. So we come to the revelation of God, and we know the Bible is written about 3,500 years ago. But before that, human history have 2,500 years. In other words, those cultures whose history are longer than 3,500 years were exposed to the oral revelation of God. And Chinese is the one who preserved the oral revelation of God. It's not that Chinese is smarter than other people, but it's because they received the revelation of God and then preserved it. That's why they treasured it. Now, therefore, they have the same source. How did they achieve this? I have to run really quick. So they realized heaven and man are separated. Now, how are you going to bring man and heaven into one? So they say it is through the most important ceremony. This is the Chinese. I'm going to show you the English translation. Someone asked Confucius the meaning of the great sacrifice. Confucius said, I don't know. By Confucius' time, the meaning is already lost. He doesn't understand. Even though he doesn't understand, but the king, the emperor's priority job is still offer sacrifices to heaven. And this is, we have many different ceremonies, but the most important one, according to the ancient Chinese, is a sacrificial ceremony is more important than anything else. We have 5 different kinds of ceremonies. But as you can see, the order, the sacrificial to heaven is the most sacred and important ceremony. And this ceremony is called the border sacrifice. It's outside of the capital. Border. It's not within the capital. So they call it 交际, outside of the capital. Now, this is the Chinese word for that. And there are many Chinese ancestors. I'm going to show you some pictures. You don't have to know all of them. And we call ourselves Yan Di, Yan Huang Zi Shun. And we have so many places to show today. This is where they offer sacrifices to heaven. And this is all of this become a tourist center today. And Kongzi even praised a man called Yao. He said, great indeed was Yao as a king. How majestic was he. It is only heaven that is grand, and only Yao corresponded to it. Yao was very obedient. We call ourselves Huaren is because Yao is Hua, and we think we are the descendant of Yao. Therefore, we call ourselves Huaren. So, in other words, Huaren, you got to obey heaven. You got to worship God. Otherwise, you're not Huaren at all. You are a foreigner to the Chinese culture. You are a banana, in another word. And so we have all of this, and they actually worship Shangdi. So these are even today, if you go to Taishan, you can see the ceremony, they play every night. They show how the ancient empress worship heaven for not generation, not only that, for thousands of years. This is showing every night. If you go to China, go to Taishan, that is the show every night. And in Xi'an, we have this altar. And in Beijing, you go to the Temple of Heaven. That is another historical site in Beijing. And this is the emperors come here to worship heaven. So how would historians saying that, or even Christians, have so much misunderstanding, thinking this country is a cult? That is because they think they are the center, I guess. You know, they call us what? They call us Far East. I always wonder why Far East? Far East from whom? Those countries are Near East. These countries are Far East. They put themselves in the center. They measure the distance. Oh, come on. You guys are not in the center. So we have to look at the educational system again. This is a polluted educational system. Over here in Beijing, they don't worship any images or idols, only Huang Tian Shangdi, only the great God of heaven. And this great handsome young man also went there and to pay tribute. And you can also go there. Now China is open. You can come to Beijing and look at it. And there's no images at all for this border sacrifice. They only worship God. Now I want to just go really quickly to show some of the odd psalms when they worship. What do they sing to heaven? Let's look at some of the translation. This is done by James Lake. James Lake came to China as a missionary. When he learned the Chinese, and he started to think, he started to read the Chinese classics. He said, wow, they are more Christian than us. Why we are here? So he started to translate all the Chinese classics into English. He became the first Chinese professor at Oxford in London. So he translated all the Chinese. Now, these are from his translation. This is not from mine. He said, of old in the beginning, there was a great chaos without a form and a dark. The five elements had not begun to revolve, nor the sun, the moon to shine. You, O spiritual sovereign, first divided the grosser parts from the pure. You made heaven, you made the earth, you made the man. All things with the reproducing power got their beings. Can you imagine this from the Chinese emperor? And just to read a couple more. All the numerous tribes of animated beings are indebted to thy favor for their beginning. And he said, the man and the things are all emparatized in thy love. O Shangdi, O God, all living beings are indebted to your goodness. But who knows from whom his blessings come to him? You alone, O Lord, are the true parent of all things. Now, the Chinese always think God as a parent to us. We even think our leaders as a 父母官. They are the ones who support us. And so let's do one more here. This is showing the attitude of the emperor. And he's saying, with the ceremonies, I reverently honor thee. Thy servant, I am but a reed or a willow. My heart is but as that of an ant. This is from the emperor. Compare with the leaders today. Put a hand on the Bible, I can do it. Then they never do it. So this is a big contrast. Why they put the Chinese culture down? Because they will review how ugly this world today is. If you look at it from the heavenly perspective. But of course, Chinese history also has many ugly things. But the things that's really shining is connected with heaven. If we take that away, nothing is going to shine. China is just as dark as anywhere else. All the Chinese ancient wisdom have its root in heaven. That is why it is so shiny, even until today. The emperor said, I deeply cherish a sense of my ignorance and blindness, and I'm afraid that I prove unworthy of thy great favors. So they always call themselves Tianzhi, the son of heaven. And their duty is to do the mandate of heaven. Every king have to do that. So that is the big ceremony. Through this ceremony, that is the way they can be made reconciled with heaven. So you wonder, where do they get it? What is the first ceremony on earth? Why the Chinese consider this ceremony the most important thing? All the emperors, they have to do it. How many times? Once a year only. Once a year. Those who know the Bible, you know, once a year, it is a high priest goes into the most holy place. Don't tell me only certain churches know the doctrine about the most holy place. No, Chinese knew it all along, 4,000 years. And you know, in the Genesis, we know God created heaven and earth, and we know the story how God created everything in 6 days. But then there is a problem. That is, God said, "Don't touch this tree, and otherwise you'll be in trouble." And I want to show you a couple more words. This is a Chinese character for tree. And of course, this is a mouse. So God is saying, your mouse should not eat from that tree. That means control yourself. So what do you think? How would the Chinese write the word restrain or control? It's like this. Mouse, don't touch that tree. That means restrain. But if you do, you will die. So we'll look at another word, to die. This is the word to die, and this is how it is written in the original Chinese. You will see the middle, there's a tree, 2 hands, 2 mouths. Both of them died because of that tree. And we have to remember this character, this system existed at least 700 years before the Bible was written. We don't copy that from Hebrews. The Chinese ancestors were exposed to the oral revelation. They don't copy it. And they fell, and so God made coats of skins, and that should be the first ceremony to make the sacrifice, anticipating the real Lamb of God, the real sacrifice, come to sacrifice for the mankind. And ever since then, the children of Adam, they come to the Garden of Eden, to the east gate, to offer sacrifice. So even today, you look at these characters, even today, this is how it is written. Perfect, and in this word, you have a perfect, you have a weapon, you have a lamb, you have a bull. Perfect lamb or bull with a weapon, with a knife to kill it. That's sacrifice. How can you put all this into one? It must be, at least the inventor of this word must be very clever. And we know from the Bible, this system comes down. When Noah got out of the ark, he built an altar to offer sacrifice. When Abraham found a new place, he built an altar. And his son Isaac also built an altar. And then we have Jacob build an altar. Then we have Moses build an altar. They don't worship images. They build an altar. But you say, oh, the Jewish are the chosen people of God. And we know when they were taken out from Egypt, they traveled for 3 months, come to the great mountain Sinai. And Moses was called up for 40 days. What did they do? They started to worship idols. 40 days, didn't see God, but still eating manna, they started to worship idols. For 4,000 years, the Chinese never see any images. For 4,000 years, the Chinese only worship at the altar, offer sacrifice. No images at all. So here is the contrast. 40 days, idol worship again. 4,000 years, no idol worship at all. when it comes to worship heaven. Who is the true children of God? We got to show this to those people who only know the so-called biblical history, limited in a tiny little place called Israel. The biblical history of God includes the whole universe. A part of that on earth is China. So let us not keep quiet, because this evidence is not to uplift the Chinese, but it's uplifting the one who redeemed us, the one who created us. So now you go to China, and they even Beijing, they have this altar there that you can visit. Now, who will be that will offer? That will be the sacrifice. Now, I will show you a little bit, and then we will close with that. Chinese have its own dictionary in the 1st century. The first Chinese dictionary. The purpose for that is to show us how to come to understand God, to read classics. English, you have the first dictionary in 1755, 16 centuries later. You tell me which one has more culture, more civilization. 1,600 years later than the Chinese dictionary. And the purpose is all different. Now, in the Chinese dictionary, the 1st century, it says, this is the word for hao. Ni hao, hao. Hao simply means the son of a woman. The seed of a woman is what is bringing blessings, bring good to this world. This is a hao. This is a Chinese. But this word alone, you say, is not enough. Can you give me another one? I'll give you another one. This is a word, xing, born of a woman. And this ancient Chinese saying, I'm going to give a literal translation. It said, a man born of heaven, born of a man, a holy mother of antiquity was conceived by heaven, who gave a son called the Son of Heaven. 1st century, before the Bible was translated into Chinese, this incarnation, it's in the Chinese system. Don't tell me only the Jews knew about it. The Chinese have talked about it for thousands of years. But they just like the Jews, they didn't know that it was Jesus who met all this description and anticipation. And we know from the Bible, now we know that this Son of Heaven, this mother is Mother Mary, and she was conceived by the Holy Spirit. And she is the one who gave the Son of Woman to come to save us. I got this one. Confucius said when he comes, he will wait for 30 years, then to teach the public about the love of God. 30 years, waiting for 30 years, and then teach the love of God. Lao Tzu, another person, and he also wrote about the holy man, the Son of God. He said, he will suffer the disgrace for the kingdom. Therefore, he's become the king of the kingdom. And he will die for the impurities and the sin of the world. Then he becomes the king of the universe. This is from Lao Tzu. 600 years before Jesus was born. He's saying that the Son of God will die for the sins of the world. Then he's qualified to be called 天下王, the king of the universe. And you tell me this culture is a cult. Oh, come on, just be more smarter. Don't be fooled by the main media. Just go back and read the scripture. And Jesus meet with all the Chinese anticipations. Unfortunately, I only have the Chinese version out there. I actually have documented all of this in a book called God and Ancient Chinese. And it is also available in English, but right now we only have the Chinese version out there. You're welcome to take the copy and read it if you can. So, why bother sacrifice? Here is the key. The Bible said he has to be burned without the camp. He has to go out. So Jesus went out without the gate. outside of Jerusalem, not within Jerusalem. His sacrifice is called a border sacrifice, outside of the capital city, outside of the city. And so Jesus is the sacrifice that Chinese has been looking. He is the answer. He is the key to bring heaven and man together as one. Thank you so much.